Okay, hey, this is my review for Zayn's new album, Icarus Falls. It's a poor album for Zayn. The album's an hour and a half long. It's 27 tracks. Doesn't have any hits, and it's bombed with sales. Sales are down like 90% since his last album. When you put a legendary figure on your album, like this Icarus, the album better be good, but this doesn't live up to it at all. Everyone's complaining about how long this album is. No one wants to listen to it through the 27 tracks for an hour and a half. That's longer than some movies. And the album really struggles to hold your attention. A lot of the tracks kind of seem the same, like Scripted, Entertainer, Good Years. And this Icarus, he actually tried new things. But this album just seems really like too much of the same and bland. And it all kind of sticks together. There's no hit in here. Remember, I don't know if you you heard of that Pillow Talk he put out a couple years ago. I don't remember it, except I just remember the name because a lot of people were into it. And it was played on the radio a little bit. There was some people that liked it though, but there's nothing like that song on here. Let Me is kind of the closest you get to a hit, but it seems like it's missing something. Features too are kind of lacking. You got Nicki Minaj on there and Timbaland. The end of the album. They kind of slipped those two features in there at the very end of the 27-track album. Could have used some more features. And it makes sense why the album came out so quietly. It's been delayed. I think it was due out in like 2017, but it was squeezed in like right at the end of 2018. It seems like maybe they're counting on holiday sales or something by doing that. The label kind of did what you do when you have a poor album, which is you release like a few singles with a new single month after month for a few months until you get a year, and then you wait until the end of the year to announce you're releasing it in a few weeks, and then you get into December, and you just hope you don't lose money when you release it. The album has this art too that wasn't even out until like a week before the release. Which seems like they just finished it at the last minute for such a big album. That should have been out a long time ago. It's kind of this cool cover with the wings on it, but it probably costs a lot of money, and the label seems like they probably pumped a lot of money into this Zayn guy, and it looks like he's lost him a ton of money with it, with this whole album. And he's kind of giving a lot of people a reason not to care. He hasn't done a lot of touring. His manager quit on him after she said that he was too hard to work with, reportedly. And his publicist isn't really saying anything, a non-responsive publicist that he has. And he hasn't done any press or promotion at all for this new album, Icarus Falls. Except this little appearance on, I think, Zane Lowe's radio show. That means he hasn't showed up on like any late night shows, hasn't showed up on daytime shows, and a lot of people might not know he has an album out, or they just don't care. The last album too he put out seems like it's sold because he was coming off this One Direction band. And he was the first one from the group to put out their own album. And everybody was paying attention. But now that One Direction's done, his first album's out there. And he's nowhere to be found. Maybe he's lost some of his popularity. There's no fan base that's supporting him because of it. This album doesn't help. But who knows? Maybe there's some hope for him in the future or something. And as for the sales are a nightmare. The label's probably taking a huge loss on this album. Coming out of the gates, the album's not even making the top 50 albums list. The last album took in over 100,000 copies. Well, this one is on track to do 5 to 15,000 copies, which is down like 90% from his last album. So it's safe to say that there's a good chance they put more money into this album than they got out of it. Maybe that cover alone cost them the album sales for this album. Maybe they did make a little bit of money on it. I don't want to be too harsh, but critics don't seem happy about this album so far. The site Trackwave has like the most reviews. There's 30 critics that just didn't say anything about this album, and these critics usually comment on huge albums like this, but they didn't say anything. And the ones that did, there was like a 44% of them that liked it on like 10 reviews or so. So a lot of critics skipped this. But some of them said it has nice beats, so there was some positive comments. And they said some of them said you can listen to it again and again. So there was some who liked it. But then others said that the length is killing the album, and that it's like really bland, surprisingly bland, with how much anticipation he had a couple years ago. Most are saying that it might have been like a good album that he just made, but this album might be good, but not amazing. If he maybe picked out like some of the good tracks from it and he put that into an album. But overall, like, this album's too long, it's boring, and he probably lost some fans if he still had any fans. It's not even in the top 50 of albums coming out, and that's it. So check out my other videos and subscribe.